The massive space station Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between the stars. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Lights blinked across its surface like tiny stars. Inside the station, thousands of beings from different planets worked together. Some had scales, others had fur, and many looked nothing like humans at all. Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and looked around. He had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place. The air smelled strange, like metal and something he could not name. His boots made soft sounds on the floor as he walked through the long hallways. Jake was 32 years old and looked like any other human. He was not very tall or very short. His brown hair was cut neat and clean. His uniform was pressed and his boots were shined. He carried a small bag with his belongings and a data pad with his orders. The orders said he was joining Strike Force Alpha. It was supposed to be one of the best fighting units in the galaxy. Jake felt nervous and excited at the same time. He had trained his whole life for this chance. He followed the signs through the station until he found the right section. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a large room with chairs arranged in a circle. 3 aliens sat waiting for him. The first alien was huge. His name was Commander Zektar. He stood 7 feet tall and had dark green scales covering his body. His arms were thick as tree trunks. Sharp claws stuck out from his fingers. When he smiled, Jake could see rows of pointed teeth. His yellow eyes looked Jake up and down. "So this is our new human," Zektar said. His voice was deep and rough. "You look very small." The second alien was different. Lieutenant Vexara looked like she was made of clear crystal. Light moved through her body in strange patterns. She was tall and thin, but Jake could tell she was strong. When she moved, her crystal body made tiny ringing sounds like wind chimes. "Humans are soft," Vexara said. Her voice sounded like music, but not friendly music. "How can soft skin protect anyone in battle?" The third alien was the strangest of all. Celine was tall and thin with pale blue skin. Her head was larger than a human head. She had no hair and her eyes were solid black. She did not speak with her mouth. Instead, Jake felt her thoughts in his mind. "This one is weak," the thought said. "His mind is simple. He cannot even hear us properly." Jake stood straight and tried to look confident. "I am Captain Jake Morrison. I am here to join Strike Force Alpha." Zektar laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Yes, we know who you are. We read your file. You have no special powers, no thick skin like mine, no energy control like Vexara, no mind, reading like Cylin. What exactly can you do?" "I can fight," Jake said simply. "Fight?" Vexara's crystal body flashed with bright colors. "Look at you. One hit from my crystal form would break your bones. One scratch from Zektar's claws would tear you apart. Cylin could confuse your mind until you forgot your own name." Jake said nothing. He had heard this kind of talk before. On Earth, some people thought humans were not ready to join the galactic community. They said humans were too young, too weak, too simple. But Jake knew better. He had trained with the best soldiers Earth had to offer. Zektar walked over to a large table in the center of the room. A hologram appeared above it, showing a dark asteroid floating in space. The asteroid had been hollowed out and turned into a fortress. Guns and shields covered its surface. "This is our next target," Zektar said. "Pirates have taken over this base. They stole some very dangerous weapons. We need to get those weapons back before they can use them." Jake studied the hologram carefully. He could see the gun positions, the shield generators, and the docking bays. His mind started working on the problem automatically. Where were the weak spots? How would he get inside? What would he do once he was there? "The base has over 200 pirates inside," Vexara added. "They have automatic guns all around the outside. The shields are very strong. 3 other teams have tried to take this base. All of them failed. Many good soldiers died trying." Cylin's thoughts whispered in Jake's head. Jake pointed to a spot on the hologram. "What about this area here? It looks like a maintenance shaft. The shields might be weaker there." Zektar waved his clawed hand dismissively. "Humans always look for the easy way. Real warriors attack from the front. We use our strength and power to smash through their defenses. But if we could get inside quietly, Jake continued, we could disable their shields from within. Then the main attack would be easier. You think too much, Vexara said. Her crystal body glowed brighter. In battle, there is no time for thinking. Only fighting. Silen's thoughts felt cold in Jake's mind. This human does not understand war, he will slow us down. Perhaps he should stay on the ship where it is safe. Jake felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice calm. I have been in many battles. I know how to fight. Have you fought Draknari warriors like me? Zektar asked, flexing his claws. No, Jake admitted. Have you fought crystal beings like Vexara? No. Have you fought anyone with psychic powers? No, but then you have not really fought at all, Zektar said with finality. Earth battles are games compared to real galactic warfare. The meeting continued for another hour. The three aliens discussed their battle plans while Jake listened. They talked about using Zektar's strength to break down doors. They planned to use Vexara's crystal form to absorb enemy fire. Silin would read the minds of the pirates to predict their moves. When they talked about Jake, it was only to give him simple jobs. He would carry extra supplies. He would watch the ship. He would stay back and provide support while they did the real fighting. Jake nodded and agreed, but inside he was frustrated. These aliens were strong and had special abilities, but they were not thinking like soldiers. They were thinking like bullies. They wanted to use their powers to smash things, not to win smartly. As the meeting ended, Jake gathered his things and prepared to leave. The three aliens were already talking among themselves, ignoring him. The human will learn, Zektar said to the others. When he sees real combat, he will understand why we do things our way. If he survives, Vexara added. Silin's thoughts drifted into Jake's mind one last time. Some lessons are learned too late. Jake walked back through the station's hallways. Other aliens stopped their conversations to stare at him. Some pointed and whispered. Word was already spreading that the famous Strike Force Alpha had a human member now. Most of the whispers were not kind. Back in his small quarters, Jake sat on his narrow bed and looked at his hands. They were not covered in scales or made of crystal. They looked ordinary and human. But Jake knew something his new teammates did not understand yet. Sometimes ordinary was exactly what you needed to do extraordinary things. Tomorrow they would begin training for the mission. Jake planned to show them what a human warrior could really do, whether they wanted to see it or not. The next morning came early on Nexus Prime. Jake woke up at 5 in the morning, just like he always did. He put on his training clothes and headed to the station's gym. The hallways were empty and quiet. Most aliens were still sleeping. The gym was huge, with different sections for different types of beings. There were areas with heavy weights for strong aliens, pools for water creatures, and special chambers for those who breathed different gases. Jake found the basic training area and started his routine. He began with simple exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, and running on the machine. His body moved in steady rhythms. Sweat started to form on his skin. This was normal for humans, but many aliens found it strange and disgusting. After an hour, other members of Strike Force Alpha arrived. Zektar walked in first. His heavy footsteps shook the floor. He went to the weight section and picked up metal bars that would crush a human. He lifted them like they were made of paper. Vexara floated into her special training area. Machines shot energy beams at her crystal body. She absorbed the energy and glowed brighter. The beams got stronger and stronger, but she absorbed them, all without any trouble. Silin stood in an empty room with her eyes closed. Jake could not see what she was doing, but he felt strange pressure in his head. Other aliens in the gym moved away from her area. Whatever she was practicing made them uncomfortable. Jake finished his basic exercises and moved to the weapons training section. He picked up a standard plasma rifle and checked it carefully. He made sure every part was clean and working. Then he went to the shooting range. The targets were set up at different distances. Some moved, some stayed still. Jake took his time and aimed carefully. He squeezed the trigger slowly and steadily. The plasma bolt hit the center of the target. He did this again and again. "Look at the human play with his toy gun," Zektar said, loudly to the others. "Does he think shooting paper targets will help in real battle?" "My claws are faster than any weapon," Zektar continued. "I do not need guns." Vexara watched Jake shoot for a few minutes. His aim is decent, but what happens when someone shoots back? His soft body cannot take damage like mine can. Jake ignored their comments and kept practicing. He shot at moving targets, targets that appeared suddenly, and targets that were very far away. His shots were accurate and consistent. After weapons training, there was hand-to-hand combat practice. The three aliens gathered in the center of the gym. Other teams stopped their training to watch. Strike Force Alpha was famous, and everyone wanted to see what they could do. Zektar went first. He fought against a training robot made of strong metal. The robot was programmed to fight like different types of enemies. Zektar did not waste time with fancy moves. He grabbed the robot with his claws and tore it apart. Metal pieces scattered across the floor. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The crowd watching made impressed sounds. Zektar flexed his muscles and smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Vexara stepped up to face her own training robot. This one shot energy beams at her. She stood still and let the beams hit her. Her crystal body absorbed the energy and grew brighter. Then she touched the robot with one finger. All the absorbed energy flowed into the machine. It exploded in a shower of sparks and smoke. More impressed sounds from the crowd. Vexara's crystal body rang like beautiful bells as she moved. Psy-Lin's test was different. She faced 3 robots at once, but she did not move or fight them physically. Instead, she stood perfectly still and stared at them. Jake felt the strange pressure in his head again, much stronger this time. The 3 robots began to move strangely. They attacked each other instead of attacking Psy-Lin. In minutes, they had destroyed themselves while she watched calmly. The crowd was amazed. Many aliens made their species versions of applause. The 3 members of Strike Force Alpha looked very pleased with themselves. Then everyone looked at Jake. It was his turn. Jake walked to the center of the training area. A new robot was brought out for him. This one looked just like the others, but Jake knew it would be programmed differently. The station's computers would have studied how the other 3 fought and made his test harder. The robot activated and immediately started shooting. Jake rolled to the side and came up with his plasma rifle ready. He fired 3 quick shots while moving. All 3 hit the robot, but it kept coming. Jake did not try to fight like his teammates. He did not stand still and absorb the damage. He did not use brute strength to tear the robot apart. He did not try to confuse its electronic brain. Instead, he used the training area itself. He ran behind equipment and used it for cover. When the robot followed him, Jake led it into obstacles. He made the robot waste its ammunition by hiding and moving. When it had to reload, Jake attacked. The fight took longer than the others. Jake had to work harder and think more. But slowly, he wore down the robot. He hit its joints to slow it down. He damaged its sensors to confuse it. Finally, he got behind it and shot its power core. The robot stopped moving. Jake was breathing hard and covered in sweat. The crowd was much quieter than before. His victory did not look as impressive as the others. It looked like hard work. "The human took too long," Zektar said dismissively. "In real battle, enemies will not wait for him to run around and hide." "He looks tired already," Vexara added. "What will happen when he faces real opponents who fight back better?" Psy-Lin's thoughts whispered to the others, but Jake caught some of them. "Weak, slow, will not survive." But Jake noticed something his teammates missed. Other aliens in the gym were studying how he fought. They watched him use the environment and think tactically. Some of them looked impressed even if they did not say anything. Later that day, the team met for mission planning. They sat around the hologram of the pirate fortress again. Jake had spent hours studying it the night before, but he did not mention this. "The attack will be simple," Zektar announced. "Vexara and I will hit the main entrance hard and fast. We will draw their attention and break through their defenses. Psy-Lin will disable their communications by confusing the operators." "What about Jake?" Vexara asked. Jake will stay with the ship, Zektar decided. He can monitor our communications and call for backup if needed, but I could help with, Jake started to say. No, Zektar cut him off. This mission is too important. We cannot risk it on unproven tactics. Jake looked at the hologram again. He could see several problems with their plan, but his teammates did not want to hear his ideas. The main entrance was too well defended. The pirates would be expecting a direct attack. There had to be a better way. That evening, Jake ate dinner alone in the station's cafeteria. He watched other mixed teams of aliens and humans working together normally. But his team was different. They saw him as a burden, not as a partner. Lieutenant, Colonel Amy Brooks, the human liaison officer, sat down across from him. She was older than Jake, with gray in her hair and scars on her hands from old battles. Having trouble with your new team? She asked quietly. Jake nodded. They think humans are too weak for real combat. Many species think that, Amy said. We are new to galactic civilization. We do not have natural armor or special powers, but we have something else. What's that? Amy smiled. We adapt. We learn. We find ways to win that others never think of. Give them time, Jake. Show them what humans can really do. Jake went to bed that night thinking about Amy's words. Tomorrow they would leave for the mission. His teammates expected him to stay safe on the ship while they did the fighting. But Jake had other plans. He had studied the fortress more carefully than any of them. He had found weaknesses they had missed, and he was going to prove that sometimes the best warrior was not the strongest or the most powerful. Sometimes the best warrior was the one who thought the hardest and adapted the fastest. The human warrior was ready to fight. 3 days later, Strike Force Alpha left Nexus Prime on their ship called the Starbreaker. The ship was sleek and fast, built for secret missions. Jake sat in the back section, while his 3 teammates gathered around the main controls. During the long journey through space, Jake spent his time studying. He had downloaded every piece of information about the pirate fortress onto his personal datapad. He memorized the layout of every room, every hallway, and every air vent. He studied the power systems, the shield generators, and the weapon placements, the key. Fortress was built inside a large asteroid. The pirates had hollowed it out and filled it with their equipment. Jake counted the guard posts, timed the patrol schedules, and mapped the electrical systems. His teammates thought he was wasting time. Why do you read so much? Zektar asked on the second day. We already know the plan. We attack the front entrance and smash through. I like to be prepared, Jake said simply. Prepared for what? Vexara's crystal body flashed with annoyed colors. You will be staying on the ship. You do not need to know about the inside of the fortress. Jake did not argue. He just kept studying. Late at night, when the others were sleeping, he quietly modified his equipment. He adjusted his environmental suit to be more flexible. He added extra power cells to his tools. He prepared gear that his teammates did not understand. Lynn's thoughts sometimes drifted into his mind while she slept. He caught fragments of her dreams. She was worried about the mission, more worried than she showed during the day. She had seen the intelligence reports about the other failed teams. Good soldiers had died trying to take this fortress. On the 3rd day, they reached the Kepler 442 system. The asteroid belt stretched out before them like a field of floating rocks. Some asteroids were as small as houses. Others were as big as cities. The pirate fortress was hidden among them. There it is. Zektar pointed to a dark shape in the distance. The fortress looked like a natural asteroid from the outside, but Jake could see the hidden gun turrets and shield generators. Lights blinked along its surface. Ships came and went, from docking bays carved into the rock. The Starbreaker moved closer, hiding behind other asteroids. The team gathered around the scanner displays to get a better look at their target. The defenses are stronger than we expected, Vexara observed. The scanner showed twice as many weapon positions as their intelligence had indicated. And there are more ships, Celine added. Her thoughts carried worry to the others. Jake studied the new information carefully. The pirates had been busy since the last intelligence report. They had added more shields, more guns, and more guards. The mission was going to be much harder than planned. We stick to the original plan, Zektar decided. More defenses just mean more things to smash. But Commander, Jake said quietly, maybe we should consider other options. There are maintenance shafts that... No, Zektar cut him off. We are warriors, not sneaky thieves. We attack from the front like honorable fighters. The team prepared for the assault. Zektar checked his natural armor and flexed his claws. Vexara charged her crystal body with energy from the ship's power core. Cylin meditated to focus her mental powers. Jake put on his modified environmental suit and checked his equipment. One more time. His teammates barely noticed his preparations. They were focused on their own abilities. The attack began as the fortress moved behind a large asteroid, blocking some of its sensor coverage. The Starbreaker approached from the blind. Spot and dropped the team onto the asteroid's surface. Jake felt the weak gravity pull at his boots as he landed. The surface was rough and covered with metal structures. The fortress's outer defenses loomed above them like mechanical mountains. Remember the plan, Zektar whispered into their communication system. Vexara and I take the main entrance. Cylin and the human use the maintenance shaft. We meet inside and find the stolen weapons. But as soon as they started moving, everything went wrong. New sensor arrays that were not in the intelligence reports detected their approach. Bright lights suddenly flooded the area around them. Alarm sounds echoed across the asteroid's surface. We have been spotted. Vexara's voice crackled over the radio. Automated gun turrets rose up from hidden positions all over the fortress. They began firing streams of energy bolts that lit up the dark space around the asteroid. The team scattered for cover behind metal structures and rock formations. Zektar and Vexara ran toward the main entrance, but heavy plasma cannons forced them to take shelter. Zektar's natural armor protected him from small weapons, but the big guns were too powerful. Energy blasts melted the rocks around him. I cannot get close enough, Zektar roared in frustration. The shields are too strong. Vexara tried to absorb the enemy fire with her crystal body, but there were too many different types of weapons. Her crystal form began to overload. She started moving slower and having trouble staying coordinated. Too much energy, she called out. I cannot absorb any more. Meanwhile, Jake and Cylin tried to reach the maintenance shaft, but when they got close, Cylin suddenly stopped moving. Something is wrong, she said. Her voice sounded confused and scared. Jake looked around but did not see any immediate danger. What is it? I cannot read their thoughts, Cylin said. Something is blocking my mind. I cannot sense the pirates at all. Jake's datapad showed new information from their ship's scanners. They have psychic dampeners, he reported, devices that block mental powers. Without her telepathic abilities, Cylin was like a person who had suddenly gone blind. She had relied on reading minds for so long that she did not know how to fight without that advantage. I cannot do this, she whispered. I cannot sense where the enemies are. I cannot predict their moves. More alarms began sounding from inside the fortress. Pirates were pouring out of hidden doors and taking defensive positions. The element of surprise was completely lost. The Starbreaker, their escape ship, was forced to retreat when the fortress's long-range weapons targeted it. The pilot's voice came over the radio with bad news. Strike Force Alpha, the defensive fire is too heavy. I have to pull back to safe distance. You are on your own until I can find another approach. Jake looked around at his teammates. Zektar was pinned down by heavy weapons. Vexara was overloaded and struggling. Cylin was confused and helpless without her psychic powers. The mission was falling apart before it had really begun. We need to retreat, Vexara said over the radio. Regroup and try again later. No, Zektar growled. We do not retreat. We are Strike Force Alpha. But even as he said it, more enemy fire forced him to duck behind cover. The pirates were organizing their defenses. Soon it would be impossible to escape, let alone complete the mission. Jake crouched behind a metal beam and studied the situation. His teammates were brave and powerful, but their straightforward approach was not working. The pirates had prepared for exactly this type of attack. It was time to try something different. Something the pirates would not expect. Something human. Jake checked his modified equipment one more time. and made a decision that would change everything. He was not going to follow the original plan. He was not going to wait for his teammates to figure out a new strategy. He was going to show them what a human warrior could really do. Jake looked at his trapped teammates and made his choice. While they were focused on the heavy weapons fire, he slipped away from the maintenance shaft. He had found a different way into the fortress during his long hours of study, the waste disposal system. It was a route that none of his teammates could use. Zektar was too big and his claws would get stuck. Vexara's crystal body was too rigid to bend through tight spaces. Cylin was too tall and would panic without her psychic powers to guide her. But Jake was human-sized and flexible. His modified environmental suit would protect him from the contaminated passages. Most importantly, the pirates would never expect anyone to use such a disgusting route. Jake crawled into a small opening near the base of the fortress. The passage was narrow and dark. Strange liquids dripped from the walls. The smell was terrible even through his suit's filters. But he kept moving forward. His teammates did not notice he was gone at first. They were too busy trying to survive the enemy fire. "We need a new plan," Vexara called over the radio. Her crystal body was flickering as it tried to process too much energy. "Where's the human?" Zektar asked. "He should be helping Cylin with the maintenance shaft." "I do not know," Cylin said. Without her mind-reading powers, she felt lost and confused. "I cannot sense him anywhere." Jake was already deep inside the fortress by then. The waste system led him through areas that were not on any security map. He crawled through pipes, climbed down shafts, and squeezed through openings that barely fit his body. He used his human flexibility to get around obstacles. When a pipe was too narrow, he took apart sections of his equipment and reassembled them on the other side. When he reached a dead end, he found alternate routes that the fortress designers had never intended for use. After 20 minutes of careful movement, Jake reached the fortress's central power core. It was a massive room filled with humming machines and blinking lights. Thick cables ran along the walls like metal snakes. The air buzzed with electrical energy. Jake studied the power distribution system. He had memorized the technical diagrams during the journey, but seeing the real thing was different. The setup was more complex than expected, but also more vulnerable. Instead of just destroying the power core like the original plan called for, Jake realized he could do something much better. He could turn the fortress's own systems against the pirates. He connected his portable computer to the main power grid. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he accessed different systems. The pirates had good security against outside attacks, but they had not expected someone to hack their systems from the inside. First, Jake disabled the psychic dampeners. Immediately, he heard Cylin's relieved voice over the radio. "My powers are back," she said. "I can sense the pirates again." But Jake was just getting started. He accessed the fortress's lighting systems and began creating rolling blackouts in different sections. The areas where Zektar was pinned down suddenly went dark. In the confusion, Zektar was able to advance toward the main entrance. "The lights are going out," Zektar reported. "I can move forward now." Next, Jake found the shield control systems. Instead of turning off all the shields, he redirected their power. He moved energy away from Vexara's position and concentrated it in areas where there were no allied forces. This allowed Vexara's overloaded crystal body to discharge safely. "The pressure is decreasing," Vexara called out. "I can function normally again." The pirates inside the fortress were starting to panic, their communications filled with confused voices asking what was happening to their systems. They knew someone was inside their base, but they could not figure out where. Jake moved through the fortress like a ghost. His small size and knowledge of the building's hidden passages made him nearly impossible to track. He used maintenance tunnels, air vents, and service corridors that the pirates had forgotten existed. He reached the fortress's communication center and accessed their internal network. Using skills he had learned in human military training, Jake began to hack their automated systems. But instead of just destroying them, he reprogrammed them. Suddenly, the fortress's own defense turrets began turning inward. They started firing at pirate positions instead of at Jake's teammates. Internal security doors slammed shut, trapping pirates in different sections of the base. Their own weapons are shooting at them. Zektar laughed over the radio. How is this possible? Jake's voice came through clearly for the first time since the mission began. Human ingenuity, he said simply. The tables had completely turned. What had seemed like an impossible mission was now achievable. Jake continued to move through the fortress, systematically dismantling the pirates' advantages from within. He found their ammunition storage and rerouted the automated delivery systems. Weapons throughout the fortress ran out of power at critical moments. He accessed their elevator controls and trapped pirates between floors. He even turned on the fire suppression systems in key areas, flooding them with foam that made fighting impossible. The pirates were fighting a battle they could not understand. Their own fortress had become their enemy. Every system they relied on was working against them. Meanwhile, Jake's teammates pressed their attack with renewed confidence. Zektar's brute strength was devastating when he could get close to his enemies. Vexara's crystal powers were unstoppable when she was not overloaded. Xylin's telepathy allowed her to coordinate their movements perfectly, but they all knew who was really winning this battle. Jake found the vault where the stolen experimental weapons were kept. The security was impressive, but he had been studying electronic locks since he was a teenager. Human technology had developed very quickly, and that rapid advancement had taught humans to understand many different types of systems. The vault door opened with a soft hiss. Inside were weapons unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Some glowed with strange energy. Others seemed to bend light around them. These were the devices that could destabilize the entire sector if they fell into the wrong hands. Jake carefully secured the weapons in special containers. But he also found something else in the vault. Data files containing information about other pirate operations throughout the galaxy. Lists of targets, schedules of attacks, and locations of hidden bases. This intelligence was worth more than the weapons themselves. As Jake worked to download the data, his teammates reached the central area of the fortress. The pirates were surrendering in groups, overwhelmed by their own malfunctioning systems. Jake, Zektar's voice came over the radio. His tone was completely different from before. What you have done here is incredible. I have never seen anything like it. How did you learn to do this? Vexara asked. Her crystal body was glowing with what Jake now recognized as amazement rather than annoyance. Humans adapt, Jake said, remembering Amy Brooks's words. We learn. We find ways to win that others do not think of. Xylin's thoughts touched his mind, but this time they carried respect and gratitude instead of doubt. You saved us all, human warrior. You turned defeat into victory. Jake finished downloading the pirate intelligence and prepared to rejoin his team. The mission was not just successful, it was beyond successful. They had recovered the stolen weapons and gained information that would help the coalition stop dozens of future attacks. But most importantly, Jake had proven something that would change how his teammates saw him forever. He had shown them that strength came in many forms. Power was not just about thick armor, energy absorption, or mind reading. Sometimes power was about thinking differently, adapting quickly, and turning your enemy's advantages into weaknesses. Thunder, human warrior, had won his first real battle, and none of his teammates would ever mock him again. Jake climbed out of the maintenance shaft and rejoined his teammates in the main corridor of the fortress. The pirates had surrendered completely. Their own weapons were pointed at them, their doors were locked, and their systems refused to obey their commands. Zektar stood among a group of defeated pirates, his claws no longer needed for battle. When he saw Jake, the big alien walked over and did something unexpected. He bowed his head in respect. I was wrong about you, human warrior, Zektar said. His deep voice was humble now. I thought strength only came from claws and armor. You have shown me a different kind of power. Vexara approached next. Her crystal body glowed with soft, warm colors instead of the angry flashes from before. You turned their entire fortress against them without throwing a single punch. I have never seen such skill. Xylin's thoughts entered Jake's mind, but they felt completely different now. Where before there had been coldness and doubt, now there was warmth and admiration. You fought with your mind and won with your intelligence. You are truly a warrior, Jake Morrison. Jake felt tired but satisfied. The mission was complete, but more importantly, he had earned his teammates' respect. We all did this together, he said. Your abilities made the final assault possible. No. Zektar shook his massive head. Without your actions, we would have failed. We would probably be dead. The Starbreaker returned to pick them up. The pilot was amazed to find the fortress completely under their control. I expected to rescue survivors, the pilot said over the radio. Instead, I find total victory. As they loaded the recovered weapons onto their ship, Jake's teammates kept asking him questions about how he had done it. How did you know about the waste disposal system? Vexara asked. I studied the fortress plans for 3 days, Jake explained. I memorized every tunnel, every pipe, and every passage. Humans are good at finding alternative solutions. But how did you hack their computer system so quickly? Zektar wanted to know. Human technology advanced very rapidly, Jake said. We had to learn many different types of systems in a short time. This taught us to adapt to new technology fast. Silin was curious about something else. When I lost my psychic powers, I felt helpless. How do humans fight without special abilities? Jake thought about this carefully. We use tools, teamwork, and creativity. We change our tactics when something does not work. We look for weaknesses that others miss. The journey back to Nexus Prime took 3 days, just like the trip out. But this time, everything was different. Jake's teammates included him in all their discussions. They asked for his opinions on tactics and strategy. They treated him as an equal member of the team. Zektar spent hours talking with Jake about human military history. Your people have fought many wars in a short time, the big alien observed. You learned to win against enemies who were bigger and stronger. Yes, Jake agreed. Humans learned that the biggest army does not always win. Sometimes the smarter army wins. Vexara was fascinated by human technology. You build tools that make you stronger and faster. You enhance your natural abilities, instead of just relying on them. Every human soldier carries equipment that helps them fight better, Jake explained. We make ourselves better through our creations. Silin wanted to understand human teamwork. Your people work together without mind reading. How do you coordinate in battle? We practice together until we know how each person thinks, Jake said. We learn to trust each other and communicate clearly. When they arrived at Nexus Prime, word of their success had already spread throughout the station. Other teams gathered to hear about the mission. The story of how Strikeforce Alpha had turned impossible defeat into total victory was told again and again. But Jake noticed something important. His teammates always made sure to explain his role in the victory. They did not try to take all the credit for themselves. The human warrior saved us all, Zektar told everyone who would listen. He showed us that there are many ways to fight and many ways to win. Jake Morrison turned the enemy's strength into weakness, Vexara added. He won the battle without firing a shot. The human mind is a powerful weapon, Silin's thoughts told the gathered crowd. We underestimated its capabilities. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Brooks found Jake in the station's cafeteria later that evening. She sat down across from him with a big smile on her face. I hear you had quite an adventure, she said. Jake nodded. My teammates are good fighters. We work well together now. And what about the mocking? Amy asked. Are they still laughing at the human warrior? Jake looked around the cafeteria. Several alien teams nodded respectfully when they saw him. Others stopped their conversations to study him with interest instead of amusement. No, Jake said quietly. I think the laughing has stopped. Amy handed him an official document. Orders from command, she said. They want you to lead your own team. Mixed species, just like Strikeforce Alpha. Interested? Jake read the orders carefully. He would have his own unit to train and command. Alien warriors from different planets would serve under a human leader. It was exactly the kind of opportunity he had dreamed about. Will my current teammates be upset if I leave? Jake asked. Amy laughed. Are you kidding? Zektar already put in a request to serve under your command. So did Vexara and Sai-Lin. They want to learn more about human tactical thinking. Jake smiled. A few days ago, these same aliens had thought he was too weak to fight alongside them. Now they wanted him to lead them. I accept, Jake said. 2 weeks later, Jake stood in front of his new team. Strike Force Alpha had become Strike Force Alpha Prime, with Jake as its commanding officer. His 3 original teammates stood beside 6 new recruits from different species. Welcome to Strike Force Alpha Prime, Jake told the mixed group. We are going to learn that victory comes in many forms. Strength is important, but so are intelligence, adaptability, and teamwork. He looked at each alien face in turn. Some looked skeptical, just like Zektar, Vexara, and Sai-Lin had when they first met him. Others seemed curious about what this human could teach them. Our first lesson is simple, Jake continued. Never underestimate your opponents, and never assume that the biggest, strongest, or most powerful fighter will always win. Zektar stepped forward. Commander Morrison speaks from experience, the big alien told the new recruits. He defeated an entire fortress without using brute force. He won a battle that we had already lost. The human way of fighting is different, Vexara added, but it is very effective. Sai-Lin's thoughts reached out to include all the team members. We are stronger together than any of us could be alone. That is what Commander Morrison taught us. Jake felt proud of how far they had all come. The aliens who had once mocked him were now his strongest supporters. They had learned to see beyond surface appearances and recognize different types of strength. The galaxy was a big place, full of challenges and dangers, but Jake was confident that his team could handle whatever came next. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest warriors were not the ones with the biggest claws or the strongest armor. Sometimes the greatest warriors were the ones who could think, adapt, and find new ways to win. The human warrior had proven himself, and none of them would ever laugh at human capabilities again.